In this video, I'm going to cover 3 things you really got to look out for if you're considering purchasing a 2006 Toyota Sienna with over 160,000 miles. Coming up next. Okay, so let's talk about the exterior of this vehicle. Fit and finish wise, the paint has faded. This is a typical thing that seems to happen to the Toyota Blues. The reason I understand they fade, and primarily you'll find them on the Corollas, the rooftop fades and the hood fades, is for some reason, from what I understand, is when they are treated in the factory, that got a really thin treatment to it as it went through the rust inhibiting process as it goes through the factory. A couple other exterior things. A lot of times you got to watch out for this handle here underneath. This is your rear hatch release handle. They tend to melt. Not because it's Florida, but and it is freaking hot down here, but they tend to melt. So those things tend to melt. Other than that, this guy's held together pretty well. I do like to beat on these vehicles just because I want to show you that over some time they've held together well. Handles. They've done a decent job on the handles. I'm going to get into that power sliding door here in a second. Rear view mirrors. The exterior fit and finish is fair. It's okay. So sometimes you get lights and stuff like that, get loose, bumpers, things that, a couple areas like that tend to loosen up. The good news is some of these honeycombs, they fall in. So none of that's happened on the exterior. So the exterior's held up pretty well, except this driver's mirror really makes me upset. You can see that it's loose, and that just pisses me off when I'm driving down the street and it's shaking. That's just one of those things, small things that upset you. But so considering this vehicle, number one, look out for the paint. It's gonna probably need some paint on the roof or on the hood. So look out for that. Let's take a peek in the interior of the vehicle. Okay, so here's the interior of the vehicle. And one of the things right off the bat, every time I shut the door, this compartment, this thing comes off. This shouldn't come off because, this should just be made a little bit better, because this is gonna get a lot of wear and tear because families and such own these vehicles, open and close the doors quite a bit, and it's just gonna get a bunch of wear and tear that way. Let's take a peek at a couple other things that on the interior, which I couldn't believe failed over the term of time. This was actually replaced because these little things just rotted and fell apart after, like I said, 15 years. I like visors. The visors held up, so I'm happy about that. These visors over here held up, not so bad. Here is an eyesore. The dash, yes, it is cracked. Why did it crack? There's an actual recall on this whole dashboard, and the previous owner did not do the recall. If you get a recall, it's a free dashboard. This entire dashboard costs about nearly $3,000 between parts and labor to replace and fix it. It's a lot of money. So, other than that, the good news is the window switches. A lot of times these interior window switches do fail after a few years. They wind up, this whole piece lifts up, or this entire piece lifts up. This one held up tight. All these other switches good. The only thing that really fell through was these 2 power outlets down here. Those failed. Other than that, everything else operates pretty good. Everything else is held up really well. Switches and everything on that side. You can see this side operates properly, as like it's supposed to, but the driver's side, it just fell off. It was made thin. It reminds me of a lot of a Chrysler Town & Country / Pacifica, which I hate to say that about a Toyota, but this was a disappointment on the interior fit and finish. I don't know what happened in 2006, but a couple things like that happened. So on the interiors, look out for the dash, and worst of all, this power door does not work. So, and they fail a lot. I don't know if you can hear that in the video, but you can hear the motor still going to try to move the door. When you buy it, consider to check this button here, check that button there, and then there's also a button on the remote. So you can check a couple different places to make sure if the sliding door operates. If it doesn't operate, figure that's a $1,200 repair. That sucks. So if somebody's trying to sell you one, if you're looking at it and that door doesn't work, and they're like, oh, it's not a big deal, I've gone without it, knock off $1,200 because that's how much it costs. What I did with this door is I wind up getting the cable cut, and so it no longer works as a power sliding door. I didn't want to spend $1,200 on basically a $4,000 or $5,000 van. It's not worth doing that at this point. Let me take you into the back seat and show you a few other things. Okay, so coming back through here, a couple things. I don't know why Toyota did these goofy armrests. You have to reset them. They look bad, but the good news is they did hold up over time. This one here, All right, there you go. It engaged. You have to kind of push it down to get the thing engaged to hold up. And so that's how those operate after some years. Handles have done well. None of the handles are falling off. The AC controls, vents. A lot of times those things pop off, but they're hanging in there. They're hanging tough. I'm surprised, happy. Let's take a look through the rear hatch. As I mentioned earlier, watch out, buyer beware. But if you're checking out one of these, do make sure that, hey, this thing folds flat. You want this to operate full flat. If I go to grab this guy here and it's not releasing on the passenger side, this one does do what it's supposed to do. So pull and reverse for the stow. It works on this side, but if you're buying one of these, you got to look at the other side, because this one here, it ain't working. It is something happening there. I ain't messing with it. It's a lot to mess with. So also check out these little storage compartments and make sure that you've got doors on top of these that are operating. All right, that sucks. I didn't even realize this one was broken, and I just discovered while I'm making this video that sucks, man. This is a Toyota Sienna, and this is one of my most disappointing vehicles that I've actually have ever reviewed, because it's a Toyota, and this thing the fit and finish should be a lot better. Things like that should not happen. So to me, it's just like, man, it just burns me up that the small things, and I'm huge on everything working properly. So let me show you one other thing underneath. Here's that power door I was talking about, and it not working. But the good news, if you disconnect it. All right, so let's start this thing up. Let me show you something that I was so sad to hear about. So there's our miles, as I said, 161,000 miles, and the check engine light is on. Why is the check engine light on? Okay, so be extremely careful of this. It needs a catalytic converter. It actually has two, and it needs both of them. The price I was quoted is $1,550 for both sides, parts and labor installed plus tax. And that's at a discount muffler place, which does really good work. I've brought a bunch of cars there before to get work done. Most expensive catalytic converter I've ever seen. So if you have a check engine light on, you better get it checked out, because if it's a catalytic converter, you just negotiated yourself $1,500 off the price. So ouch, look out for that. One of the disappointing things I couldn't believe that went down on this vehicle already at 161,000 miles on this 2006 Sienna. Okay, so my final thoughts on this van. I would give it, if this was a star rating, this would be a 2.5 star van. Why 2.5 stars? As I pointed out, we talked about the paint. We talked about the driver's door. We talked about the catalytic converter. We've covered, and one other thing, which I failed to mention, the power steering pump. Can't seem to figure out why it has a whining sound to it. Is it failing? It may be on its way to fail, but it's another thing that's questionable. Reliability, for the most part, yes, it's there. Fit and finish, not so much. Would I recommend it? I would try to find one which didn't have any issues. If there's things to fix on it, watch out for the power sliding door. Look out for the paint. Look out for the catalytic converter. Make sure everything works on it. Watch all your components. But anyhow, just a couple things to watch out for. If you guys like my videos, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.